Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And this episode's brought to you by our Patreon members. Join our growing community for early access to every episode, exclusive video versions of the podcast, behind-the-scenes footage, full-length product demos, and more. We appreciate you. Spoon, what's happening?
Well, what's happening is it's fall, and it's been a very busy fall when it comes to C.F. Martin and Company. They have, in recent years, always sought to release at least one model around this time of year before the NAMM show. They used to always wait till NAMM for everything to come out. And occasionally they would bring something out in October, or November. And this year, they've outdone themselves. But I think one of the biggest surprises for a lot of people, and one of the coolest guitars, at least I think they've come out with in a long time, was recently announced as a custom artist edition that we're going to talk about today.
One of the guitars or two of the guitars? Can I correct you that early?
Maybe, if we have time to talk about more than one. But there's one particularly I'm eager to talk about, and that is, well, I guess you can, because there really are two guitars in this edition. Good point.
Yeah. See, I'm studying.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the one I'm most excited about is the new M7 Johnny Marr Custom Artist Edition that is just so super cool. It's got a lot of traditional features, but some subtly cool features as well. And it's the M7, of course, because it's a 7-string guitar.
Well, now we have problems because I saw the production notes of this program and I looked at the date on the calendar. I'm here to talk about the Johnny Marr M6. So we're going to have to arm wrestle.
I think, yes. Then there is also the Johnny Marr, the M6 Johnny Marr, and yes. Which is the 6-string version. So they're almost identical. And we'll get into the really the only one subtle difference other than having an extra string. For those who are unfamiliar with Mr. Marr, he is a British guitarist that originally was a founding member of the Smiths, and which were a huge band in the 1980s, and the post-punk scene that you could also say included bands like the Talking Heads and people like that weren't really punk and were sort of, highbrow rock. I think the Smiths had a really interesting sound that combined sort of poppy dance music with some more harder rock and roll. Marr is famous for being a complete guitar freak, in his own words, and he's known primarily for being an electric guitarist, but he has owned and performed with bunch of different acoustic guitars as well. And the Smiths' music is actually full of acoustic guitar that is subtly woven in the background of the mixes, sometimes as the prominent rhythm instrument. So there's a lot of acoustic guitar throughout the Smiths. And then he went on, after the Smiths went separate ways, he joined the Pretenders briefly. He then moved from the Pretenders to The, which is another one of those journeyman bands that's been around since the 70s. He joined in about 88, I think, and was with them for maybe 2 albums and toured with them. Then he went on to more acts, including, fronting his own band, which he's doing right now as well. He's back out on tour and actually has been performing with the prototype of this guitar since at least January of this year. So it was kind of like a known secret that, due to press embargoes and stuff, people were not allowed to talk about until just recently. But Johnny Marr, he's considered one of the most influential guitarists from the 1980s, and he's also I'm trying to remember which Smiths album it is. I think it's their third album is listed on Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time, coming in at, like, I don't know, somewhere about 130 or something like that. But so yeah, for people not familiar with him, he's been around. A friend of mine, I'll just end this sort of bio about Mr. Marr by saying a friend of mine recently mentioned that he listened to the Smiths a lot, but that it had back then, and it had not really occurred to him that Johnny Marr had gone on to have a solo career and was continuing to be a major act. And in fact, he just played a series of concerts earlier this year that, fronting a big orchestra, in Manchester, where he's from. He's also got some really nice, there's videos of him out there playing the guitar in concert, videos of him out there talking about the guitar and the process. And I have no problem with Mancunian, the accent, but some Americans may want to have the subtitles on, but I'm always surprised by that. There's a lot of people who seem to not be able to understand British accents, but he's got a classic Mancunian accent I enjoy listening to. But anyway, very cool guy, supposed to be extremely nice guy, and now he's been honored with a Martin signature model because he's always been a huge fan of Martin guitars.
Anybody out there who's always been saying the Martin doesn't make enough M's, it's the M36 and I don't have any other choices. Well, now you do. And whether or not it's a signature model shouldn't make much of a difference. But I was more impressed with the fact that they came out with a signature M than the fact that it was him specifically. And I know you can talk to people at Martin, you can talk to prominent dealers, and maybe they would all have a pretty good reason why they don't think there is a need for a lot of M's. But wouldn't you agree there's a need for more than one?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Like you say, they've been the M36, and Chris Martin always insisted that there be one M in the line as what he calls legacy models. And they decided to go with the M36 instead of the M38 because it's more affordable, for one thing. And people like the three-piece back. And Johnny Marr certainly loved the three-piece back. He, when they came to make this model, he mentioned to Fred Green, who's in charge of manufacturing at the plant, about his different Martins, and he wanted to draw together various specs from his Martins, mainly his the D28, which he played from the 1970s, and he has a couple of those he records with. One's a 71. And he also has a Sunburst model that he still plays. But then in later years, he moved to a D35, and so he specifically wanted a three-piece back on this model. And you'll notice it's M7. It's doesn't actually have a style in the model name and no style identifier. So it's a combination of the M36, the M35, and to a certain extent the D28 with some really cool other features. So yeah, it is an M. It is similar to the M36, but it has some differences. So in terms of the practicality of the instrument, it's got the same woods, same tone woods as an M36, and it's got ebony bridge and ebony board. So and it's got a very unique bridge. It's different than all of his other guitars. It's got the old-fashioned early 20th century straight bridge with the pyramids that looks awesome, while still getting the red dot markers on the pins, on the bridge pins that you get from the M36. So also it's a different neck shape. We'll get into that, but and of course the M7 has that very cool 7th string.
Yes, it does. And I don't know if you've followed a lot on Facebook and the Acoustic Guitar Forum. I don't want to tell you where I saw it because I don't know if it's something somebody wants to own as far as a comment, but you could buy the 7, and then if you want the 6, just take that string off. You don't even have an extra bridge pin. You only have one extra tuner. I have to wonder if anybody that's on the fence which one to get, it'd be a lot harder to make the M6 be the M7 than going the other way around. But there's something unique about the M7, and I wanted to ask you. I started looking into this a few days ago, getting ready to do this program. Is this the same high side, low side double G that was on the HD7, or is it the Rickenbacker version?
Well, they are. It is. The Rickenbacker, it does have that. That's where that came from originally. It has the high G nearer the D string than the B string. And that's what gave the Rickenbacker, that's what gave the Rickenbacker 360 its unique sound. And yes, and very much for the same reasons. This is one of the things that he brought up. He was interested in, and it's one of the specs that he mentioned to Fred Green. He was curious about it. He had read about it, and it actually goes back before this configuration had been tried on electric guitars in the early 1950s. And I don't remember which models, but I do know there was some electric guitar out there that had a seventh string. Now, most people think of seven strings as having extra bass string, and certainly throughout the jazz world, that was typical. You would typically have an extra bass string that was thicker than the bottom E, and I think usually turned down to B. And people that I can think of that come to mind, Bucky Pizzarelli played a seven-string guitar, and when he and George Barnes were touring together and recording with albums together, he had just got it. I'm trying to remember which luthier made it for him. I think it's one of the ones that begins with B, but I don't remember if it was Benedetto who made it. But anyway, that was typical. So what was unusual about the HD7 was it was an acoustic guitar. And that, of course, was the signature model for Roger McGuinn of the Byrds. And he was famous for his 12-string, jangly 12-string sound. So yeah, and I think it's fascinating, the whole story of the 12-string Rick. The 330 was a very popular guitar, and in fact, Johnny Marr played one of those, as did John Lennon, as did John Fogerty. A lot of people in the Beatle and Woodstock era played them. Have a unique sound compared to the usual Fenders and Gibsons and Guilds that other people were playing. A lot of people don't know that Rickenbacker made like two of these guitars, or maybe three, and they sent one to the Beatles, basically unannounced. They basically sent it to them, asking if they'd be wanting to try it out. And George Harrison, of course, fell in love with it, and it became a signature Beatles sound. The opening chord of Hard Day's Night is a very good example of that, and other tunes that he played it on in concert. And the Rick 12s are set up that when you see them, at least from a distance, they don't look like a 12-string because the extra strings are behind the knobs are behind the other knobs. So it basically looks like a 6-string guitar. McGuinn and David Crosby and maybe other people from the Byrds went to see the Beatles in San Francisco in what had to have been 65, I guess, maybe 64 even, and saw that and just flipped over the sound that George Harrison was getting from his this interesting, mysterious guitar that he was playing that had the extra sound to it. But they were far enough away they didn't realize it was a 12-string at first. And as soon as they found out, they both bought Rick 360s as soon as they could get them, and which then gave the Byrds their signature sound. So jump to the years later, and they come out with that special Roger McGuinn 7-string Dreadnought, and I'm really surprised that Johnny Marr didn't go with a Dreadnought, because even though he's owned a variety of acoustic guitars in all kinds of sizes and brands, his Martins had all been Dreadnoughts that he recorded with or played in concert. So it's fascinating that he ended up going with an M.
So do you think that's Fred Green's influence, or was that just collaborative? Because I wonder when that stuff happens, it almost makes me think that if he's like, I don't know, should I do a Dreadnought? And this is just hyperbole. If he's hypothetically going to Martin with that attitude, I'm not totally set on the size, is that Martin's way of saying, come on, we need another M, this would be great for both of us? Or does that somebody just want to try a different size?
That's a fascinating question, because I'm sure with the other M signature models, particularly the George Martin model. I'm pretty sure that was probably Dick Boak's influence, but he also at the same time was probably wanting a guitar that's going to record well, and so he ended up with basically a mahogany M, 3-piece back, and I think, does it have a different wood in the center wedge? I don't remember. It might, but on the 3-piece back. But it's got a European spruce top and a fantastic guitar. So I don't know. Other than I know that Marr has been quoted some places of talking about the dreadnoughts and trying to not say they're boomy by saying they're boomy without trying to say they're boomy. And so maybe he's run into the same thing with big rosewood dreadnoughts trying to record with them. So, of course, one thing in the Smiths era where you had 80,000 pounds of compression, on your acoustic guitars. And so it's, but, maybe more in the modern era, he's had, more trouble recording with dreadnoughts, as a lot of people can. But fascinating that they go with an M. I can't wait to get this guitar in my hand. I've heard other demos of it, but I haven't been able to get to the factory. But it's fascinating and similar to the McGuinn guitar. When you're strumming it, you don't really hear it. You don't really hear the 7th string in that 12-string sort of way, like you would when you're strumming a 12-string. It's when you're picking it that all of a sudden it really pops out, or finger picking it. Then all of a sudden it's got that sound. When you're strumming it, it's just this extra dimension. It's this extra ethereal or angelic. It's like this angelic, over the chords that you're strumming. And I guess even when you're not playing that string, when you are picking, if you don't pick it, it's still the harmonics of it still have influence over the arpeggios and that stuff. And I just think it's a wonderful sound, and it adds an awful lot. And he was telling the story that he was doing these concerts with the orchestra, and he had played with his Sunburst D28 the first night, and the prototype arrived. And so I don't know if it ended up being the one that he kept, or if it was just something he got, temporarily, and then it went back to Martin while they finished the signature edition or not. But the prototype got to him, and he just, bucked up and performed the second night with the orchestra. And he said immediately that extra something, I don't, however he put it, was so apparent, and he was, completely in love with the guitar. And it comes with the LR Baggs pickup system that Martin uses on the higher end guitars. And what's the name of it? Anthem, yeah, the Baggs Anthem. So that it works plug and play or acoustically. So that's another very good feature of this instrument.
Yeah, to your point, I remember some real long demos. I don't know who did them anymore, but back when the HD7 was new, and playing, strumming along with that 7th string in the background was one thing, and then take a lead, and if you do most of your lead on that double string, it sounded like you're playing a 12-string because you're not hearing the strings you're not playing. You're basically showing off the octave of it, and it really, as long as you can do what you wanted to do, I would typically play like that on maybe the 3rd and 4th string, but if you can discipline yourself to play them all on the G, or both Gs, that really does, it's not even a trick. It literally is all the double you need for those little pieces. I never sold a lot of those, but when we had them in the shop, they were a lot of fun to play.
Well, yeah, and this guitar is actually upscale from that one, and it's upscale from the M36 as well. This has the premium woods. So the Indian rosewood is premium, the spruce is premium. Just like all the other Martins now, the spruce is just called spruce. It could be Sitka, or it could be Lutz, which is the natural hybrid of white spruce and Sitka that grows in the same forest as Sitka once you're inside the coastal Northwest Pacific mountain range. And, and there's people, before Martin started using Lutz, there were people, particularly independent builders out on the West Coast, that were, saying that Lutz totally trumps, Sitka, was way better than Sitka. My experience, having heard them here and there on Martins at the factory, is I think I couldn't tell the difference between them, and I pride myself on my ability to discern, very subtle changes in tone and sound. Whatever the case is, whatever's on these, the ones that they've been showing online, like at the Martin, the press photos that they sent to me, and the stuff that's on the website. The stuff I got is much higher resolution, but that top is spectacular. It's like a D45 level top with, wonderful straight grain, really evenly spaced, and just manic cross grain to it. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff.
And speaking of subtleties,
cool.
I know I'm going to lean into the idea of reminding our listeners how, not generational, but how breakthrough this actually could be. A lot of our customers back when we were selling Martin guitars at Maury's Music would often ask me of the new Reimagined series, do you have anything in stock with the old nut? Pay close attention. This model has the narrow 1 11/16 inch nut. It's not the same neck, and I know we're going to get to that, but this does harken back to the pre-2018 first position feel, at least string spacing wise. But now that I say that, I want you to throw a wrecking ball into the argument and tell us what that full thickness neck really means.
Oh, well, yes. First of all, you're right. It has the 1 11/16 inch nut width and the 2 1/8 at the 12th fret. So that's the old standard taper and fingerboard, but it's got some other features to it. The full thickness neck. It's a neck profile that has been used on other modern era Martins, particularly the D28 Rich Robinson, which is based on his dad's 1950s D28. So basically it's the same neck on a 1960s Martin, 1970s Martin, which is what Johnny Marr was played with 1970s Martins. And he's one of these Englishmen. Prior to around 1970 or maybe 68. You couldn't get Martins in the UK. They had like embargoes on American goods, a lot of American goods, and one of them includes musical instruments. So you couldn't actually just go into a store and buy a Martin guitar in England. So, but he always wanted a Martin guitar, and the moment he could actually afford one and get one, he got a D28, and he got a D12 28 as soon as they came out with the. That's the one that has the 14 fret neck and the standard, flat-shouldered dreadnought body. And then later on, got his second D28 and his D35. But all of those early Martins that he bought had what we now call the full thickness neck. In those days, every neck was hand-carved. No neck was exactly the same. But now they have the standardized ability to cut the neck. So basically, they are the same, other than some minor, sanding that might take place. But so it's thicker barrel. It's a thicker barrel so that your fretting hand, doesn't come all the way around it. It's like instead of being here on this part of my wrist, it's like being up here. So it's a little fatter. So when you reach around, if you have big hands, the neck doesn't disappear in your hands, and you don't feel like you're clawing up. It still feels different than the 1 3/4, but it's not as it's just not as cramped. And then as you go up the neck, it's more of a handful, and you get when you get up in the upper neck, it's not a 1936 baseball bat by any means, but if you've never played 60s, 70s Martin, it's definitely a fuller, rounder barrel to the profile, and even has a slight V feel to it, really, compared to the low profile or modified low oval, at least in my opinion.
So, without getting you in trouble, how would you compare it off the cuff to the thicker versions of the modern authentic series Martins? Are they still thicker still?
Oh yeah, they have the 1930s style hill. That's a much different thing, and much more V. I mean, I don't think there are certainly some 50s, 60s Martins that feel pretty V'd to me. But again, it's, different people are carving the necks and so, but I would say by the time you get into the 70s, when you get into this full thickness neck that we have, when I say it feels more V'd, it's still a subtle thing. It's still not a true V. And it's not nearly as fat as the D28 authentic 1937, or even the narrow necked 18. Not at all.
Nice. Well, I was talking to our connection. That sounds kind of sketchy, but our connection said sooner than later we're going to get our hands on this 7 and 6 M6 and M7 Johnny Marr. I'm really curious. I don't know the last time I played a full thickness neck, and I'm probably as anxious to play the 6 as I am the 7. But I wanted to ask you before we forget too, comparing it to the M36 that we all know, with this new Johnny Marr, both the 6 and 7 versions having 5/16 inch scallop bracing on this top, that's the same signature sound as a regular M36 too, right?
That's correct. It's closer to an M36 than anything else. It's a long scale. It's got the 1/11/16 inch nut. It has the same looks to it. It's got the same style 35/36 purfling around the edge of the top, though it doesn't look like it, thanks to the antique finish. So this is not unprecedented. They've only done this on certain instruments, however, and basically all it really is, it's the same aging toner that they put on the standard series and other series like that, but they don't put as many coats on it, and they don't scrape it off. So you don't get the vibrant white of the on the sound hole rosette or around the edge of the top. So it looks like wood fiber. In fact, I thought it was wood fiber the first time I saw it, but it turned out it's not. They literally just don't take the razor blade and scrape the finish off of it. So it has a very cool look and a very unique look, and it blends in beautifully with the antique white binding. So really nice look. I think they should start doing that with everything, frankly. I think it's a gorgeous look. I don't know if when they're using the level of finish that they have on the standard series, if that would look as good, but I really like this. It's a very subtle discoloring of the wood and looks to me much more like a naturally aged piece of wood.
And what do you think of that new trick where they're sharing one bridge pin? This is a 7-string guitar on the M7. You have 7 tuning machines, obviously, but you don't have a need for the 7 bridge pins at the bridge. And if I'm remembering correctly, I'm sure the McGuinn did have 7 pins.
I do believe it did too. I meant to look that up and I completely forgot. So I am very curious to see how this works. Even more curious for the people who are lucky enough to own one, who can comment the first time they go to change their strings. But so hopefully somebody who's listening to this podcast will, in fact, do that at some point, and maybe they can come back to this and on the YouTube version in the comments, maybe tell us what they think about that. But up at the other end, yes, it's got the extra tuning machine. So you have 4 tuning machines on the treble side. Not only that, they are the smaller closed tuners. On the 6-string, you got the bigger enclosed tuners that they've kept on the D35 because, again, as a legacy model, to go back to the kind of tuners that used to be used at that time in the 20th century. So it is. So they don't have those retro open back tuners like the standard series does typically have.
Well, I can't think of a good segue. I'm just going to come out and ask it. What else do we have to tell you or ask you about the Johnny Marr M6 and M7 before we talk about M20? We haven't played 20 questions in 3 weeks. And I'm Jones.
Okay, well, what do I think? What do I like about it? What I like about it is I like the back strip on the center block is the modern style 28 back strip. So it's what's on a D28. It's not the zigzag, 1930s zigzag on the HD28. And it's not the herringbone like on the HD35 or anything like that. So I think that's very cool. The examples we've seen, the rosewood varies greatly. but as usual, the center wedge is clearly from a different piece of wood than the book matched outside wedges. Let's see. I want to make sure I get everything in here. So we talked about the antique toner. We talked about the nuts. You mentioned that it has the same nut width, and of course this is the full gloss, full thickness neck, and antique toner multi-strip, and on the top inlay that looks really cool because you don't have that bright white plastic that some people think looks way too white and bright up against the aging toner stuff. Still a compensated saddle, and that big neck, full gloss neck, which you don't get from the standard series guitars, and it does not have a bound fingerboard that you get a Style 35, so that's something that's taken from Style 28.
I forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah, and
I kind of missed that.
Oh yeah. I don't know if any of you people have heard. Now that just popped out of my head. The name of the company, the handmade guitar strap company. That's got
Soldier.
kind of a. Oh yeah, exactly. Thank you. So Soldier spelled with a SOUL. You get a limited edition strap that they've made specifically for these models, so that's kind of cool too. And they look really nice. They look a bit like a very fancy mosaic. Basically this is a reddish strap, but if you go check out their website, they make all kinds of interesting straps. So, custom artist signature model by Johnny Marr. I'm looking forward to hearing more of this. He is, he's one of these artists that never really stops, and he's also one of these artists that goes through guitars like people go through boxes of chocolate. He will buy guitars and then he'll give them away, and so he's not somebody like hoards a huge collection. So particularly when it comes to his electric guitars, he had a 12-string ES335, and he's always liked 12 strings, but then he got tired of them because of the extra maintenance of the Rickenbacker and the ES335 12, and he basically stopped using them. And that's what. But he's really glad to have this 7-string to get that high-end jangle thing going from a 12-string without having to deal with actual 12 strings. So very cool guitar, and I wonder if Martin will ever make a 20-string guitar, but maybe well, I guess you could. Harp guitarists, maybe they qualify they've made harp guitars before in the past, but so there it is, Johnny Marr. I'm looking really forward to playing it, and I'm glad I got reintroduced to his music. If he certainly comes over here and comes to New York City, I'll definitely go see him. I've enjoyed watching his live videos lately. So
that's a band I've always known about, the Smiths, and I'll tell you, if I've heard their music, I don't know that I'd be able to tell you that that's what I'm hearing, but I suspect it's one of those artists I must have heard. Their most influential stuff must have crossed my ears somewhere.
Well, and it's Morrissey. So Morrissey was the lead singer of the Smiths, and so and when they split apart, then the two of them went their separate ways into their own solo careers. And I think Morrissey has a much more of he's got that sort of dance club sound, and in his voice and that kind of stuff. And Marr's definitely the more of the rocker, black leather jacket rocker kind of guy. So, and he's played with all kinds of people, as a guest artist. So he's never really stopped, even if a lot of people didn't stay up on his career. So I'm glad I got sort of reintroduced to him about this, and I'm looking forward to more of his music.
Here's to 20 more incarnations of Johnny Marr.
So that sounds like it's time for 20 questions. This is the game that we like to play whenever we have time to play it. where one of us, in this case the wise guy being me, will think up of a Martin guitar, and the smart guy, which is Maury, has 20 questions to try to guess what Martin guitar available today out in the world I am thinking of, and he can pick up to 3 models to guess that are part of those 20 questions. And the 20 questions are on the clock now.
Is this guitar made in Nazareth?
Yes, it is made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
Is this guitar offered in both a 6 and 7 string version?
No, but it would probably be pretty cool if it was.
Is this guitar a dreadnought?
No, it is not a dreadnought.
Is this guitar short scale?
Yes, it is short scale.
Is this guitar equipped with a mahogany top?
No, that is 5 questions. It does not have a mahogany top.
Does this guitar have rosewood back and sides?
No, that's 6 questions.
Too bad. Is this guitar 0018?
No, 7 questions and 1 model.
Wasn't entirely prepared to have you say no at that part. Is this guitar an 018?
No, 8 questions and 2 models.
Is this guitar a signature model?
No, it is not a signature model. 9 questions.
Does it have an Adirondack top?
No, it does not have an Adirondack top. That's 10 questions. 10 questions and 1 model to go.
Is it a triple O?
It is not a triple O. 11 questions.
You said it was short scale.
Yes.
Is Robert Getzel involved?
No. That's 13 questions.
Is it a double O?
14 questions. No.
Do I have time to wait until this episode goes to YouTube and gets viewed and I can ask them what they're saying in the comments?
No. 15 questions.
I hate these roadblocks. I'm fixated on something that I'm not seeing around the corner. Thinking out loud, it's not an O, it's not a double O, it's not a triple O. It is short scale, and it's made in Nazareth, and it's not a signature model, and it's not a Robert Getzel. And it doesn't have an Adirondack top. Do they make a short scale dreadnought?
Not yet. I hope they do. So what are we up to now? That's the 15th question. Well,
that's probably
yeah.
16.
Well, 15 was, can you wait till we air the episode?
5
5 questions and 1 model to go.
Is it a slot head?
It is not a slot head. Four questions to go.
Does it have Eric Clapton's signature on the fretboard?
No. Three questions to go.
Is it a CEO 10?
No. I have one question for you. Do you have an opinion about the movie Aloha, Bobby and Rose?
Is it that Oahu?
The HG-28 Oahu. You never asked, is it made of mahogany? And I would have said no. And then you would have gone to Koa.
I completely forgot that that's not a dreadnought. But did I? Oh, never mind.
No, it's its own unique body shape based on the old Gibson Hawaiian guitars. You just did an episode about it.
I know. That's why I'm mad. All right. Well, I'm not in the mood to talk a lot longer after that because that was pretty insulting. But yeah, you. Here's this guy, couldn't wait to play 20 questions. Why? It's like watching football. Why do I say I cannot wait for this game to start? Never turns out to be true. So, well, with that said, we do hope you've enjoyed this program based on the new Johnny Marr M6, M7. Please let us know in the comment section. If you are watching the YouTube version, what do you think of the new models? Have you had a chance to see one in person? We would love to hear your comments on what you think of that guitar. And from all of us at Martins and More, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.